what's up? My name is Daniela and welcome to a new video. So today I'm here with a new original tag which I'm really excited about. In the past I've created one other original tag which was called the International Booktuber tag, and it ended up one of the most fun experiences I've had on BookTube. So I really felt like making a new one. The tag is called Contradictions book tag, and as the title suggests, it's about bookish contradictions. I did some research and I didn't find a tag that would have similar questions, but if you know about one that is really similar, or if you've made one, please tell me and I will be happy to link it in the description. But without further ado, I think we can jump right into the questions. Well, they aren't really questions, they're more like statements, but anyway. So number one is, I love this genre, but I didn't like this book. For this, I'm going to mention a contemporary book because contemporary is one of my favorite genres, but I really didn't like this book. And that's The Spare Bedroom by Elizabeth Neep. So this is an adult contemporary book about a woman named Jess who is British, and she goes to Australia. She has no money, nowhere to stay, and she bumps into her ex-boyfriend Sam. And Sam suggests that she stays at his place, but he omits the fact that he's actually living with his girlfriend. So as you can see, the synopsis itself promises that it's going to be messy, but I still thought that the author is going to pull it off somehow, and that at least the characters will be likable or something, but I don't think she pulled it off. It was indeed very messy and not a good experience. So Jess moves there and she keeps lying to everyone around her, and she's generally really annoying, and basically she's still obsessed with Sam, and she analyzes every look and every word he tells her, and she still hopes that he would see a reason and he would dump his girlfriend and get back to her, because like she keeps reminding him like, this isn't you, like you're about to make the biggest mistake of your life because like no one knows you like I do. And I was like, girl, no. We also got some casual vegan shaming, which by this point it really should be retired, but it keeps happening and it's annoying. So I found the book very boring, the characters unlikable. It dragged a lot and we had to wait till the very end for a little bit of character development, but by that point it was way too late. So yeah, I gave this book 2 stars and it's probably one of my least favorite contemporaries. Number 2 is, I rarely read this genre, but I love this book. So a genre I don't read much is historical fiction, yet I really liked Everything I Never Told You by Celeste Ng. So this book takes place in the 70s, and I actually liked her other book, Little Fires Everywhere more, but that takes place in the 90s, and I don't think that's historical because like I'm from the 90s and I don't think I'm historical. So Everything I Never Told You is a novel about a Chinese American family living in a small town in Ohio in the 70s. The parents have a favorite child called Lydia, who they put a lot of pressure on, and one day she's found dead in a lake. It's basically a detailed portrait of the family, their relationships, also talks about race. I would say that books by Celeste Ng are kind of low-key literary fiction in the sense that it's beautifully written and we really get deep into the characters and their dynamics, but it's also really approachable. At least for me, I found it really easy to read, so I would recommend it if you're just getting into adult fiction or you want to try some literary fiction, or just to anyone who doesn't mind character-driven stories. I read it a few years ago, so I checked if I did any review on Goodreads, and the only thing I found is a comment that says this was an awesome punch in the gut, which I think it's accurate. Number 3 is, I love this trope, but I didn't like this book. For this one, I have to say The Hating Game by Sally Thorne. That was a book I thought I was going to absolutely love because it's about an office romance and it's hate to love, and it just sounded really amazing, and the majority of people seem to really love it, but unfortunately I was really disappointed. It's about 2 characters who work together and who hate each other, and eventually there's a romance. I don't think there's much more to that. I listened to the audiobook and I also really didn't like the audiobook, so maybe that kind of contributed to me really not liking this book, but I don't think I would like it that much more if I read it physically. I didn't like the characters at all. I like when characters have something going on in life outside of the romance, but it seemed that Lucy's, her personality was hating Josh and later like practically begging him to be her lover, which was kind of pathetic. And then Josh was really controlling and jealous and threw her in a family situation which was a mess without warning. I felt so disengaged from the story that I was actually bored during a sex scene, which I don't think has ever happened to me before. I also found some of Josh's behavior a bit creepy. Just everything about their relationship screamed unhealthy for me. I'm not sure if I want to pick up anything else by Sally Thorne, although she has a new book out which is called Second First Impressions. So let me know if you read it and if you think that I could like it after really not liking the hating game. Number 4 is I hate this trope but I love this book. I'm going to say The Right Swipe by Alicia Ray. So this is an adult contemporary romance about a woman named Rhiannon, and she owns a dating app, but in real life she's really careful about getting involved emotionally in relationships. But one day she hooks up with a guy, but he then ghosts her. And she's like, okay, I'm never going to forgive him if he ever like shows up his face. But later they meet kind of publicly, and here we got the trope I don't like, which is miscommunication. But luckily it is resolved pretty quickly and it's a thing in the beginning rather than throughout the book, or it isn't a major plot twist or anything. After that we get a really sweet romance full of respect and consent, although Rhiannon still kind of guards her feelings. So for me, this was a really refreshing romance about two adults who actually have lives outside of the relationship. And the guy named Samson is also an ex-rugby player, and there was this plotline about injuries and kind of issues of that industry, which not that I care super much about this, but it was nice to read about other things that the characters deal with in life outside of the romance. I like that this book showed that although there are probably bound to be some miscommunication situations in most relationships, it doesn't have to be something we have to deal for a big portion of the story, and it can be resolved and we can move on. Number 5 is I love this author but I didn't like this book. So for this I'm going to say Truly Madly Guilty by Liane Moriarty. So Liane Moriarty is one of my favorite authors. I've read most books she has written. I still have a couple left, but this was my least favorite by her. So this is an adult contemporary about a group of friends, and the story revolves around one gathering where something bad happens and it's kind of hinted at, and we don't know what it is until later on in the book. But in this case I really didn't like the characters and the story dragged and the reveal wasn't super satisfactory. So yeah, this ended up being one of my least favorite books by her. Number 6 is I previously disliked a book by this author, but I loved this book. So funny thing, I actually don't have a good answer for this, but I think that other people could have. Because the thing with me is that if I rate a book lower than 4 stars, I'm not super likely to pick up other books by the same author. It has happened, but in most cases I also didn't end up liking the next book very much. But I'm going to say City of Ghosts by V.E. Schwab. So previously, before reading this book, I read A Darker Shade of Magic, which I gave 4 stars, and then I read Wishes, which I didn't like that much, and I gave it 3 stars. But then I read City of Ghosts, and it's my favorite book by V.E. Schwab that I've read. I still gave it 4 stars, but yeah, it was really enjoyable. It's a middle grade book about a girl named Cassidy, and she can see ghosts, and ironically her parents have some kind of show where they kind of pretend that they can see ghosts but they can't, and the family goes to Edinburgh to shoot some footage there, and yeah, there's some adventure. I listened to this on audio and I really liked the narrator, and I loved the setting, and the characters were fun to read about. So yeah, this was a good time. Number 7 is I love this cover, but I didn't like this book. So it's not like I didn't like this book, but I didn't love it. And that's Binti by Nnedi Okorafor. So this is a young adult sci-fi about a young girl who is accepted to some university in space. So she's traveling there and it's about what happens on the journey. I think that my experience with this book was partially a me problem because I listened to it on audiobook, but I realized that when it comes to sci-fi or fantasy with a lot of world building and new terms, I prefer seeing them on paper instead of just hearing it because I'm more of a visual learner. So I just ended up being really confused about the world building, and the character also kind of read younger than I expected for her age, which could be a general problem for me, but I would be quite willing to give this book another chance in physical form. Number 8 is, I don't like this cover, but I love this book. So for this one, I'm going to do something I almost never do, and that's I'm going to talk about the checkbook. So the reason I don't talk about checkbooks much is that, well, I don't read many of them anymore, although I read a lot in the past because, like, I studied Czech. But yeah, I don't feel like it's worth it to talk about checkbooks much because most of them haven't been translated into English. So what's the point of talking about books you can't read anyway? But there's a book I really enjoyed and that has been translated into English, and that's Everyday's Books by Karel Michal. So this book was first published in the 60s and it's a collection of short stories about fantastical creatures that mess with the everyday reality of communist Czechoslovakia. So it's basically a satire. My favorite short story is the one about the talking cat. That is just hilarious. It's a weird little book and I haven't read the English translation, so I don't know if it's good, and I don't know what people would make of it if they don't know anything about communism in Europe in the mid-20th century. But I would recommend giving it a try, and I would be super interested in your thoughts on this one. And last thing to do in this tag is to tag someone. So I'm going to tag a few people. So I'm going to tag Sasha from The Wild Sasha, Jiva from Jiva Reads, Raya from The Book Finch, Shoshana from Shoshana, Victoria from What Victoria Read, Olivia Savannah from Olivia's Catastrophe, Dani from Current Chapter, and Cleo from Bemused Bookworm. All of these people's channels will be linked in the description, and definitely check them out because they are amazing. And obviously I also tag anyone who wants to do it. I would love to see this tag on other people's channels, but also if I tagged you, absolutely no pressure because I know how it can feel like, oh my god, I've been tagged in 5 things and I still haven't done it, so like, it's okay, feel free to ignore this. So yeah, that is everything for the Contradictions book tag. Let me know your thoughts in the comments, or feel free to answer some of the questions in the comments, or just leave me an emoji. In the description you will also find the links for my social media. Thank you so much for watching and I will see you next time. Bye!